Hello and a warm welcome. South Africa's economy tick. Gauteng's size of the economy rivals that of some countries on the continent. The man who is at the helm and responsible for economic growth of this province is Lebogang Maile. I sat down with the man to discuss growth in these elusive times.
Well, the first important thing is that we are guided by the national policy. And as you know, the president has already announced a few things that would have to happen. And you also have to look at issues of energy security, look at the different sectors of priority based on our economic development strategy. There are certain structures, sectors that we have prioritized, but we also want to look at government procurement spend.
But your province largely flourishes on its ability to draw additional income, because you know that government's spending that is allocated by National Treasury hardly goes enough in a province as massive as this one.
Well, revenue generation, it's a problem not just for provinces or municipalities, even for national. You'll remember there was a 50 billion rand shortfall at the national level, hence increase on VAT by 1%. But we also have our own sources of revenue, like gambling tax, liquor licenses, motor vehicle licenses, amongst others. And in the last few years since our tenure, we have been doing quite well. We have not had seen any drop in those sources of revenue.
And that's the kind of specifications, if you will, that I was hoping that we'd touch on a little bit when you look at the fact that Gauteng does not exactly have a lot of land. It's finite, and in a place as saturated as the urban areas, it's very hard to find enough land to make a dent with much. So are you looking at employing technology in order to be able to fully leverage on the ability of agriculture?
We have no choice, despite the shortage of land. There's a lot of technology. For instance, if you look at the vertical hydroponic tunnels, are meant to produce food without a hassle. And an advanced province like ours must look at different technologies. You've got a lot of innovation already in agriculture by various countries. The Agricultural Research Council, for instance, is doing a lot of work in exploring a whole range of technologies and products that can help us, for instance, to deal with drought, challenges of climate change, and all that. So we have no choice. All we need to do is to understand the circumstances that we find ourselves in, because if we don't understand them, we'll not be able to adapt. And
technology generally comes at a cost. Is that a disadvantage to you, or is it an advantage to what would be emerging farmers? What does it mean from a position of government?
The reason you collect revenue, we spoke about revenue, is to invest it and help us with whatever developmental goals we have. But resources will never be enough. The question is, how do you manage them, and how do you strike a balance? And that's what we must always do.
If you were to rate your own performance here, weighing the needs of the province, considering the amount of influx of migration that the province experiences, to what we are able to achieve, how would you judge yourself?
By myself, you need one. Myself as a person.
Your own performance as the MEC of Economic Development in the province.
Well, I'm not at liberty to discuss that, because it's not for me to say whether I'm doing well or not. What is important is that the governing party that has contested for elections has a program. So the question that we must ask differently is, how far are we with the implementation of that program and whether we're making progress or not. And in looking at that, you can't be simplistic because, as you say, there's a myriad of problems and challenges like in migration, economy not doing well, this and that and all that. So, but I think the ANC-led government is on track, and our commitment to change the lives of our people will never be deterred. We are doing our level best, and we are talking about the collective here, not about personal individuals who are worried about their cult and their popularity. We are not in a beauty contest, so it doesn't matter how one performs. But what is important is how do we work as a collective and complement each other in pursuance of the objectives as set out in the ANC manifesto. What we own, releasing it has nothing to do with expropriation because we own it already, so we must just distribute. What would have to be expropriated, as you correctly say, in line with Rule 25, which ANC has said must be tested in court. And as you know, there's a constitutional review to look at amending the constitution. What is certain is that we will proceed with that expropriation without compensation. And what is also certain is that we will ensure that whatever actions we take do not harm the economy, as the resolution says, and do not harm food production. We are committed to doing that. And that is why this process of land review is to look at how do you balance and make sure that you don't harm the economy.
Ronald Lamola, who is a subcommittee member of economic transformation within the African National Congress, said that the state must encourage entities such as Transnet, for instance, to release some of the land, some of the huge land holdings that they have. Have you started engaging entities like the state-owned body, and what kind of reaction are you getting?
We are a government ourselves. We own a lot of land, we own a lot of buildings ourselves here. So there is some land that will be owned by national government or national entities here. We will definitely engage them, but we have not yet engaged them. But it's not like they have a choice. It's a policy decision we've made. The governing party has given us marching orders, and would have. So it doesn't matter how they react. What matters is how fast do we move with this process, and in Gauteng we want to move as quick as possible. And that's why we even have what we call a rapid land release program, and we even have a team of about 5 people, 3 MECs, 2 mayors, to look at how can we fast track that process.
I'd like to go back to the collective that is the African National Congress, party of your upbringing, really. MEC Maile, is the ANC battling for unity? When one looks at the national landscape, it's very difficult to say that unity is only in a song that was sang at Nazareth. Fair?
But what is unity?
Because you guys tell us.
Because unity is not everybody. It doesn't mean people must love each other and write each other love letters.
But the ANC has failed to unite under one common cause and put away all their troubles since Nazareth. That is this unity.
It's not true.
Okay, what is
true? It's not true. I mean, you have the National Executive Committee of the ANC, which is the highest decision-making body, meeting regularly as required, taking collective decisions, communicating those decisions coherently, consistently, and you have had challenges. Why is that not making
a dent with the provinces and the court challenges that we're seeing across the country?
No, but the fact that people don't see things the same way doesn't mean that there's this unity. ANC is not a homogeneous entity. It's an organization that has got people who are rich, people who are poor, people who are educated, people who are not educated, people who are workers, people who are capitalists. And it's given that those people, they come from different backgrounds, they will not think the same.
Okay.
And when we've got an organization called ANC, which has got its strategic objective as being building a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic South Africa that is prosperous, changing the lives of our people, we are governing, we must make sure. You'll always have people from time to time seeing things differently in terms of how, and those are issues of tactics, not even issues of strategy. So if you've got people differing, because we live in a constitutional democracy,
okay,
and there is nothing wrong with an ANC constitution being tested against the constitution of the country, because this constitution of the country, we fought for it. So why should we have a problem with our constitution being tested against that constitution? I mean, there's
but
nothing.
that's almost making me believe that there is unity in the ANC, and I'm just refusing to see it, even though I'm seeing all these court challenges. There is serious disunity. Members are not uniting under the same common vision, and they can't put their problems to the side.
No. Just show me one organization, whether a social club, a soccer team, a church grouping, just show me one where people don't have different views.
Okay.
On a whole range of issues.
So
but the fact that you've got an organization with a leadership intact and in fact, people are taking the ANC to court based on its constitution because they believe in that constitution. And sometimes they feel that constitution is being violated. They believe in that constitution. So you're saying people don't have one thing that they believe in. They believe in that constitution, and that constitution clearly states what is the vision of the ANC, what are the aims and objectives of the ANC, and because they believe in that constitution, which is what unites us amongst other things, whenever they feel that not enough is done to implement that constitution, they never allow the leadership to get away with whatever, or people that they feel are trembling on that constitution because they believe in that. They are protecting, when some of them go to court, it's because they're saying the constitution is being violated. Because remember, if people are saying meetings have been called, certain processes have not been followed, it's because the constitution says what processes must be followed.
But your own movement is calling for ANC comrades not to approach the court, to try and find internal ways of solving these disputes. But these disputes, they linger. They've been lingering for a while. They've been lingering in KwaZulu-Natal. They have been lingering in the Free State. And it seems that there are disputes in Gauteng as well, your province. So for me, this is the battle, to see the internal processes working. If I don't see the results of the internal processes, but I see the movement stopping fellow comrades from approaching the courts.
No, you know, ideally we don't want people to go to court, but it's not illegal. That's what I was saying to you. Yeah, so ideally we want to deal with those issues internally, and that is why the National Executive Committee has said NEC deployees in KZN meet and deal with these issues. In Gauteng, meet and deal with these issues. They are dealing with these issues. There is no board in Gauteng who has taken the ANC to court, by the way, because I'm in Gauteng. And
but
even
branches are not happy, and branches are not in agreement.
Not everyone will be happy. But I said to you, give me one institution where everybody's not even in your family.
But okay.
Even in your family, you've got people who don't see eye to eye on a whole range of issues. So why would you want ANC people to behave as if they can't think, as if they don't have brains? People who've got brains formulate views from time to time and take positions.
I'm not saying these words. I'm telling you what it looks like as an outsider.
But I'm saying what it looks like, it's not how it is. That I'm saying to you, having grown in the ANC, there's always been robust debates in the ANC. If you know the history of the ANC, there's been conferences like Morogoro, conferences like Kabwe, where serious issues were discussed, which had a potential of even breaking the ANC apart, where people were even talking what we call the national question, for instance, whether we should have non-blacks to be in the structures of the ANC. So the culture of debate is entrenched in the ANC. It's there. So when you see people differing, the only difference is that Kabwe conference or Morogoro conference was never on national television. Because at the time, SABC was run by the apartheid national party. They never wanted people to see. The only difference now is that these robust debates that you see are on national television, and on national media.
After the break, we switch from capital and mix it with a little bit of politics. See you in a bit. Welcome back to Political Capital, the intersection of money and politics. Lebogang Maile is a name that's synonymous with student Congress from his early days in Alexander to the heights when he contested for the ANC Youth League presidency. Now his supporters are calling for him to stand up and be counted as one of the elected officials in Gauteng province for the African National Congress. They want him to become the deputy chairperson of the African National Congress in this province. I discussed just that with him. You're having your provincial conference in July. Your name has been brought up among 3 others for the position of deputy chairperson of the province for the ANC. Do you embrace your nomination? Are you happy about it? And have you started campaigning?
That's not how the ANC works. You don't go around talking about yourself. What I can tell you for sure is that the ANC Youth League in Gauteng, the Provincial Executive Committee and my branch have officially raised that issue, that they would want me to contest in the office bearers of the ANC. And I'm sure at the right time, because you don't qualify by just getting 2 nominations. You need a lot. We've got 471 branches that are going there, and I'm sure more than 1,300 delegates. So the process of PGMs is busy, proceeding, dealing with those issues of nominations. And once they are done, there will be a time where I will be asked a question, whether I accept or not.
Can I ask you that question right now?
No.
Do you want to be the deputy chairperson of Gauteng?
I'm saying there will be a time. The right people called the elections agency, they ask that question, the elections agency. And then we respond to them, not the media. We don't respond to the media whether we're available or not. Because at that time and platform, when they ask, the branches of the ANC, the representatives of the ANC branches will be present at conference. We must then answer to them. It's a right question to ask, but the right,
that's all I can
wrong
do.
platform. But
that's
wrong
all I
platform.
can do. I am just here to ask you
but
questions.
It's a wrong platform.
One of them.
Yeah, it's a wrong platform. It's a right question. And I think usually when the elections agency asks that question, there's media. I think media is allowed.
All right.
So you'll be there and you'll be able to get my answer.
I hope I hear you voice those words. All right, when you look at the state of Gauteng ANC, how it is still relatable to those that live in Gauteng, do you feel that there's work that needs to be done there to connect ANC to the people? And what do you need to do when you're talking amongst yourselves?
Obviously, there's always room for improvement. There's no perfect organization.
What's wrong with this one in Gauteng?
It's not whether there should be something wrong. There shouldn't be something wrong. What I'm saying is that there's no perfect organization. So even if we are doing our level best, we must always try to do better than whatever we are doing. And that's the point I'm raising. We are a big organization. We've got a presence in all the corners of the province. We're probably the only organization that exists in all the 530 wards or so. And as a result, because we are governing as well, there's a huge expectation from our people. As you know, unemployment, the economy has not been doing well, youth unemployment, the education system, kids not getting access to higher education and all that. So there's a huge expectation, and we can't afford to tire as the ANC. We must always be on top of our game. We must always find innovative solutions, think outside the box. We must always try to raise the hopes of our people. It's not easy when people are not working, they are unemployed, to keep their hopes high. So it's a very difficult task. It's actually more daunting and difficult to lead an organization like the ANC. It's actually easy to be in the opposition, and that is why I think the DA regrets why they took the offer to govern Johannesburg and Tshwane, because they've been exposed badly, badly. They've never seen what they are seeing now. They are seeing flames because they now realize that being in opposition, it's not like governing. Because when you govern, you have a huge responsibility. And your responsibility, it's not towards your members and those who voted for you. They are trying in Tshwane, for instance, to just deliver to those who voted for. It's backfiring, and things
well, those things are subjective, and you're not.
No, they're not.
No, they are sometimes. I'm sure DA person would not have your view of the African National Congress.
No, they're
and
not.
I'm willing to disagree on this.
Look at the financial situation of Johannesburg.
Okay.
It's worse now. When we left a surplus of 5 billion.
That's not what Herman Mashaba says. Herman Mashaba says it was worse then. And I appreciate politics for politics. That's why I'm saying.
No, remember, Herman Mashaba is a clown. I don't think he understands what he's doing. I don't think he understands what it means. If you can ask him in one line, or maybe even in a paragraph, to tell you what does it mean to be a mayor, let alone of Johannesburg, he will not even explain. So I'm saying to you now, the city has not been spending on their infrastructure budget. So that is facts. It's there. It's not about what I'm saying. I'm saying to you, there's more robots not working now than, and you can go back, do that a comparative study as a journalist. I'm saying to you, there's more potholes now in Johannesburg. I'm saying to you, Johannesburg is more dirty now as I speak to you. Go to Alex, where I come from. It has never been dirty as it is now. So there's a lot of objective things that we can show you that they failed on. And it has nothing to do with our views. But our service delivery record speaks for ourselves. Look at the ratings agencies now. Go and look at the ratings agencies. Look at how they've rated Johannesburg. These are independent. They've nothing to do with the ANC. And look at how they rated the ANC previously. So there's a whole range of things. So that chap is a clown.
To disagree on that one, and I will hold a different view of that. What I will want to talk about right now also, it would be remiss for me not to mention this. There's calls that have been made for you to be investigated for a tender that was awarded to ANC national spokesperson.
Calls made by who?
There's been numerous people in the media.
People?
Well,
there's no one has ever made any such call. Let me help you.
Okay. There's been several reports citing that you must be investigated, calling on the Premier to launch such an investigation.
No. There's no such.
Okay.
How will you, why will you investigate me? Because I don't have anything to do with tenders.
Okay.
Just show me one MEC or minister who deals with tenders. If you look at the Public Finance Management Act, it tells you there's what we call executive authority, which is what I am, and there's what is called accounting authority. There is nowhere there that I've got not even an inch of an influence. So there can't even be a basis to say I must be. Anybody who says that, they're not normal. They don't understand how government works. It's just populism. And in fact, the reason I'm asking you who says that is because I think today we should be saving the DA, because the DA made those allegations. And they didn't understand, because the Premier issued a statement saying he's subjecting about 300 reports to SIU, and one of them, it's a contract called EnviroMobi, which was on Mail and Guardian and all that. So they then conclude that it has to do with me. There's those 300 investigations are in all the departments. So if they mean MECs are being investigated. So it means all the 10 MECs are being investigated. I mean, what kind of government is that? So it means we don't have a government. All MECs must leave. So there's no such, there's no investigation.
Do you believe there's corruption in the province, and do you believe that it should be investigated?
Corruption is there in our society. It's there in government institutions, different government institutions. Remember, corrupt people don't go around saying we are corrupt. They do it in the clandestine way. They find strategies to do it. So you can't go around saying there's no corruption unless you can vouch for everybody. So it is there, and that is why we must have mechanisms in place to fight it. And that is why that's not a one-person battle, by the way. That's an ANC decision. When we contested elections, if you look at our manifesto, one of the things we said we'll do is to fight corruption. So any deployee of the ANC, whether you are an MEC, a premier, a minister, or a president, you have no choice but to fight corruption. If you don't like fighting corruption, you have no place in the ANC government. So you can't even begin to ask whether it must be fought or not. It has to be fought, it has to be defeated, because if we don't defeat corruption, we will not be able to achieve all these objectives that we are talking about: creating a better life, dealing with issues of inequality, dealing with poverty, improving service delivery. We will not achieve all those objectives if we don't fight corruption.
Do you think it's important that we prosecute
and by the way, I've
corruption?
No, definitely.
Because we've always been talking about this thing as if it's like this thing that's untangible,
and we have
that
prosecuted
nobody
them.
is
No,
really,
we have prosecuted them. A
but
lot of them.
Do you think that we even scratch the surface in terms of prosecution in this country? It seems like we all agree that it's a problem.
No, remember.
But we don't have the same vigor towards this prosecution.
Remember, what we must not do is to be populist. If someone is accused of corruption and they are investigated and they are not found guilty, it doesn't mean there's a problem.
No, it doesn't.
But if someone is really indeed implicated in corruption, and nothing happens, then there's a problem. If you look at these 300 reports that we are investigating in Gauteng, and you look at officials that have been previously disciplined in Gauteng, we have even fired people, by the way. We fired like 2 HODs, for instance. There was even a big story about some chap in health who was dealing with risk, who was found red-handed with money. And I can give you a lot of examples. We have fired people in agencies that report to me, Gauteng Enterprise Propeller. In fact, soon now we will be arresting people through the hawks, to ensure that people go to jail, because we are committed and we are dealing with it practically. But not only that, we have taken steps. For instance, we have an ethics committee of external people chaired by Mr. Mbembe. We've got an open tender system. We've got fraud detection. So we are not just talking about it. We are doing something about it as government, and not just for its own sake, but we are acting decisively and drastically.
Amazing. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for being with us on this episode. We're back again on your screens next Tuesday at 6:30 Central African Time, only on CNBC Africa. Until then, good evening.